Welcome, folks. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review 50 Cent's movie soundtrack album, Get Rich or Die Tryin'. Now, this has the same name as his debut album, but basically there was a movie that came out in late 2005 called Get Rich or Die Tryin', and 50 Cent dropped the soundtrack to it similar to what Eminem did with 8 Mile. Now, basically, 50 Cent's version of his movie debut was pretty damn good. It's definitely kind of a underrated and kind of under talked about project, under promoted and that type stuff. But it also signifies like at a certain point where people kind of were starting to get tired of 50 Cent. I mean, he had a pretty large 2005. There was at least 5 or 6 projects that dropped in 2005 from the G Unit label. But it's just odd because this to me was like the last album where 50 Cent's like original reign that he had had since 2002 kind of took place. And it's just kind of underneath the impression where I really expected like Hustler'S Ambition to do a lot better. The lead single that was supposed to be like his version of Lose Yourself by Eminem, but it only really got to 65 on the Billboard 100, which was surprising because it was just an excellent kind of nice outgoing song. Definitely felt like it had a real ubiquitous and kind of looming, sprawling kind of social feel towards it, but it just did not match like the project success that it needed. I'm just curious. It says that it went triple platinum, but I still feel like it was relatively underwhelming compared to what 50 Cent did with The Massacre and Get Rich or Die Trying. It's good. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I said, it's an underappreciated project for sure. It has 5 singles on here. G Unit members are on here. Yayo, Buck, and Lloyd Banks are on here, and it has some new characters too. So MOP, 50 Cent was really planning on expanding the G Unit empire back in 2006. He had Olivia, he had Spider Loc, MOP, Mob Deep. There were some folks that were kind of on this project that got really truncated celebrities just because it was cut short. And Olivia never put out her album and she got dropped from G Unit. MOP never dropped their album. Spider Loc might have dropped a couple mixtapes. I'm not really sure. I think he was affiliated with G Unit for a little while, but he was like the next one that was going to blow up in 2006 after Mobb Deep. Mobb Deep managed to put out an album in early 2006, and I reviewed that album a while back called Blood Money, but that was kind of what happened. The G Unit empire really fell apart in 2006 because of the Dirty South and that type of stuff. But just to kind of say, more people were interested in Lil Wayne and Jeezy and T.I. and that type of stuff around that time. So that's kind of why this album really feels slighted and just that kind of concept. But it does have a high success rate. I feel like this is definitely 50 Cent in a very prime form, pumping out joints on here. There's some Dr. Dre beats on here. Shaw Money XL is on here. DJ Khalil is on here. There's some pretty hefty singles. It's just the fact that they were kind of underperformed. That's just kind of the concept. But it was a successful project. It did go at least 3 times platinum. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about like the singles on this project. So the first single is Hustler'S Ambition, and this is the lead single that capped off the movie and was like the theme song to the Get Rich or Die Trying movie. And it was basically like 50 Cent's version of Lose Yourself. Really large, sprawling hook. 50 Cent did the hook like he did back in the early 2000s and stuff. And it really happened to kind of have like a pretty real kind of crawling type nature towards it. Definitely like that. Just felt larger than at the time. It felt larger than life, just the way it kind of was emphatic. It's a very emphatic and kind of browsy kind of song. Definitely very similar vibes to Lose Yourself. Just that kind of pitch where it's like, hey, this is reaching more audiences, that type of stuff. That, I mean, that's kind of what 8 Mile soundtrack did for Eminem, is it took him out of the rap format, and this was 50 Cent's attempt. I mean, he had other singles that were 50 Cent had other singles that were doing that, but this is kind of one where he was in Hollywood now and trying to branch out and kind of get that sort of vibe. So it was interesting kind of get that. But it's just too bad that Hustlers, I mean, I don't really care. I mean, this is a great song. I listen to it often. It's a real nice one. But I would have to say it only reached 65 on the Billboard 100. So I don't know. It's kind of, I mean, it felt like a real sprawling it felt like a real sprawling kind of night venue cut. Definitely somewhere where you'd be VIP and club and that type of stuff. This is something where you're just kind of in a booth or something like that, paying attention to the music and that type of stuff. Just really feels like a nice gigantic night venue song, especially for the mid 2000s. That's a nice one. Window Shopper was the second single, and this is another one that's kind of in a night venue basis. But to me, this feels like the sequel to 50 Cent's song Wangsta. Like 50 Cent dropped a song on Get Rich in the 8 Mile soundtrack called Wangsta, which is kind of a sing-songy rap song, has a real addictive beat, and is just kind of talking about some punk that's a Wangsta trying to stunt like him. This is the sequel to that, and I think this helped popularize the trend of the word window shopper and that type stuff. Window shopper basically mean that you're just shopping through, looking through the window, not really buying stuff and don't have enough money to buy it and that type of stuff. Pretty nice insult towards the people that 50 Cent was beefing with, like Ja Rule and Fat Joe and some of those type folks. But yeah, this is probably the highest charting song off the album, and it's good. This one actually outdid the lead single for the Get Rich or Die Tryin soundtrack. Hit like 20 on the Billboard 100. This is the best charting song out of the 5 singles. It's a real nice one. This is another hooky, like I said, uh, very similar to Wangsta, and has some nice melodic flows on there. 50 Cent kind of sing raps this song, and it's really addictive. I think you'll like it. Has like some addictive, definitely feels like a night venue kind of song, and just kind of stepping out, just kind of one of those stunting, flexing songs, going out for the night. Nice one. Third single is Best Friend, and there's a version of this that has Olivia on there, but the album version doesn't. This is basically just an R&B flavored 50 Cent song. Has a real nice syrupy kind of emphatic R&B type hook on here. It's just basically, if you've heard the recent Pop Smoke song What You Know About Love, it's very similar to that. It's a little bit more rosy and blushy than 21 Questions, where 50 Cent's kind of more in his feelings with this one. Is just a little bit more romantic. I think ladies wanted a more romantic one compared to the thuggish gesture of 21 Questions, or kind of the more cocky candy shop and that type stuff, and the kind of sleazy, the kind of summery, sleazy kind of, what was it? Just a little bit. So it's just kind of, this one's a little bit more rosy and that type stuff. I definitely like it. It's just perfect for winter, booed up, kind of romantic winter weather, kind of romance type stuff. And I mean, it can be played around the year, but it's just kind of, it has that nice kind of rosy kind of feel. And Have a Party, I really like this one. This has Nate Dogg. This is 50 Cent and Nate Dogg's second team up, so this is a really nice one. And then it has Mobb Deep on here also as a bonus. If you've heard the 50 Cent song from 2005 off the Massacre special edition called Out of Control Remix, which is a really brilliant Dr. Dre beat, this is like the sequel kind of to that song. It's their next team up, and it has Nate Dogg on there also, so that kicks a lot of ass. Real nice party song, any sort of setting. I could see this being played at a vanilla club, a promo type club, like a night venue. This place is VIP, that type of stuff. Just a real brilliant kind of fast-paced, wicked, uppity type song that just works perfect in 50 Cent type vibes. Definitely kind of an overlooked. I just don't hear this song talked about all the time. This works pretty damn well. It's a little bit more like Disco Inferno and that type stuff. This really works as a nice kind of posse club song, which we definitely need more of. And it's 50 Cent teaming up with Mobb Deep, kind of in that sort of night venue type setting. So it really feels like a song from like the mid-late 2000s, but it's just kind of a good concept to kind of get that one. It's definitely an underappreciated 50 Cent song. And then the fifth single was I'll Whip Your Head Boy, and this song has Young Buck on there. And this one's a pretty rousing song. This is another kind of stepping out kind of song. This one's a little bit more street. This is definitely the street single of the 5 singles, apart from Hustler's Ambition. I mean, Window Shopper's kind of street too, but it's just kind of underneath the impression that this one is really like the one that probably was like the song My Buddy off of G Unit's Beg for Mercy, where that one was released as a single, but it's just kind of a street single. It's kind of like Poppin' Them Things and My Buddy, where this is kind of the street, doesn't really care about breaking mainstream type song, just kind of more grindy, or more grinding and grimy and that type stuff. I definitely have to say it's a real mean song. I definitely like it. It has a real kind of urgency about it. Just really feels kind of vital and that type stuff. I definitely appreciate the vibes that was coming off of this project and Young Buck, or this song, and Young Buck enhances it pretty well too. He has a good verse. I definitely like. He's not like a Wu-Tang lyricist, but he did pretty well on the song. He definitely kept up with 50 on there, so it's pretty nice. Has a great hook on here too. Real sprawling club cut and that type of stuff works for that sort of vibe. So I'm going to go ahead and list the 12 songs out of 18 that I recommend. So I'll go ahead and talk about this. So the 12 songs I recommend are Have a Party, Get Low, Window Shopper, I'll Whip Your Head Boy, You Already Know, Things Change, Hustler's Ambition, Talk About Me, Best Friend, I Don't Know Officer, When It Rains It Pours, and Fake Love. So to talk about some of these, like some of the ones that are not by 50 Cent, 50 Cent's on here quite a bit, but I would say songs like Get Low and Fake Love. Lloyd Banks' Get Low is really good, and Lloyd Banks has a couple good songs on here. He doesn't nail every single one, but most of the Lloyd Banks appearances on here are quite fire. I definitely feel like Lloyd Banks came through and did some real good deliverances. You Already Know is a real snaking kind of song. This has a pretty urgent and pretty rough and ferocious kind of beat, and Lloyd Banks completely tears it apart, and 50 Cent and Young Buck keep up with them pretty well. That one's just a real high tempo, quick one that's just like a boiler. And Get Low is like a nice strip club kind of song. Definitely can see this kind of being played at like a mid-tempo, kind of just woozy, kind of syrupy, woozy kind of strip club night. Lloyd Banks really delivered on that. Like that's the sort of song that I'd expect out of Lil Jon or like Bone Crusher or T.I. or something like that. But it's a pretty nice card that Lloyd Banks pulled out of his hand right there. Tony Yayo has like this real kind of promo type club type song. I really like Fake Love. I was surprised by this one. This has a nice kind of appeal, talking about homies that are really not, that don't really have your back and that type of stuff. I definitely feel like Tony Yayo's. I'm glad that Tony Yayo kind of made like a night venue type song. This is kind of like a vanilla kind of club song. I just see that it's kind of, I don't know why Tony Yayo was not on this album more. It's just kind of surprising that he wasn't, just because he really only makes this one appearance. He had just dropped an album, but I would have liked another cut from Tony Yayo, because this was a pretty nice vanilla club cut, and I would have liked to have seen if he would have made some other songs like that. But it's just a nice approach from Yayo. That was a nice one. And When It Rains It Pours is a Dr. Dre beat, and it has a really addictive kind of beat. It's this kind of, it's more of a sad and kind of a slump kind of song. This, if you've heard the phrase "when it rains it pours," if you've heard the phrase "when it rains it pours," which means when it's bad, it's bad. It's kind of I mean, it's not really a social and stepping out kind of song. It's just kind of a song that's supposed to cheer you up when 50 Cent explains some of the crap that he's going through and that sort of situation that he has to deal with. And it's just kind of a song to kind of showcase this for having a bad day, and kind of a song for having a more slanted and kind of distorted kind of day in kind of a bad way. So it's good to kind of have 50 Cent get that sort of song. And Talk About Me is another Dr. Dre beat. This is a really nice one. I can see this being played at like a nice fancy night venue. This one has a little bit more fanciness towards it. 50 Cent responding and kind of mimicking some of the gossip that people say about him. It's a pretty clever song. I like that one. Nice piano beat. It's real Dr. Dre on like some East Coast type vibes, but just in kind of a fancy type setting. I Don't Know Officer is a really chilling song. This is another street song that works extremely well, and it's a posse song, so it has Lloyd Banks, Prodigy from Mobb Deep, Spider Loke's on here, and Mace. You know, Mace from his church retirement and that type stuff. It's just a real bone-chilling kind of song. I just really feel like this is another piano beat that just really works extremely well, and it has like these kind of, it kind of has like these sitar type things in certain places of the verse, and it's really kind of addictive. And it really works as like a nice street cut to kind of have as far as that kind of goes. I can definitely see this just being like a cruising around type song, just kind of errand running in that sort of sense, just in a more street sense. Or some other ones. Like, I don't know if I talked about Things Change. I want to talk about Things Change just because this is a nice Spider Loke type song. I definitely like the way this kind of worked. It felt like a Things Change was kind of a club cut, but just kind of in a more low-key sense. It kind of felt more of like a hole-in-the-wall type club, a little bit more lighter venue, that type of stuff, more of like a pub type thing. Just a lot more of like a hole-in-the-wall type place. But I definitely liked it. I like the concept of Spider Loke having these type of songs. It makes me want to check out some of his mixtapes that he did with G-Unit, and just to see what happens. 50 Cent does the hook on here, and Lloyd Banks drops a pretty nice guest verse on here to help out. It's a pretty interesting one. That's another one that kind of, I mean, it feels kind of like triumphant, but I would also have to say that it just kind of has like that nice feel good type feel for a street single. So it's interesting kind of get that in the production. I think that about covers it. So just to kind of say like that about covers it. So to talk about some of the songs I didn't enjoy, like I didn't really like the kind of East Coast type beat of What If. I felt like that one kind of had lousy production on there. I wasn't, it was tough to kind of get into that one. It was kind of, that didn't synchronize with 50 Cent's normal kind of high quality beat selection. And When Death Becomes You is not one. When Death Becomes You and We Both Think Alike had pretty terrible beats on there, and I don't know why they were saying Olivia was on We Both Think Alike because I didn't see her on there. She might have done like background vocals, but she didn't really drop a verse. And When Death Becomes You and We Both Think Alike were pretty bad beats. I really didn't like. I mean, Young Buck felt really out of place on this project because it kind of had more contemporary East Coast type vibes. I mean, Lloyd Banks pulled it off, but Lloyd Banks pulled it off, but Young Buck with his kind of dirty South type vibe, it just didn't really, it kind of felt out of place trying to hear Young Buck kind of come up with some beats and stuff. I mean, it kind of felt out of place for Young Buck trying to come up with songs for this project. I mean, he worked really well on like Beg for Mercy, the G-Unit album, but he just didn't quite deliver on this project. I mean, he was barely on this project too. He was only on here 3 times. I mean, the songs that he dropped guest verses on were pretty good, but the song that he tried to do for the soundtrack just didn't really turn out that well. It just did not match with the rest of the project. And Lloyd Banks's other song, Born Alone, Die Alone, was not up to quality. I felt like Get Low completely obliterates that song. Just did not see it up to snuff. And then You a Shooter, Mobb Deep song was just kind of, I mean, that's a complaint that I think that goes along with Mobb Deep for the most part is they just don't really have contemporary type production. It's really kind of hardcore type stuff. I mean, they get a lot of heralded praise in their lyricism, but even 50 Cent, I mean, that was supposed to be like the big team up as 50 Cent trying to make Mobb Deep contemporary, but it just didn't really turn out that well. I felt like Mobb Deep's Blood Money was at least a decent attempt at them trying to go contemporary, but they were just always going to be hardcore, and this is an example of that. And so that's kind of the concept. 50 Cent delivers the most on this project. I definitely feel like 50 Cent, minus the song What If, came through extensively. The solo songs that he did, Best Friend, Hustler's Ambition, Window Shopper, Talk About Me, When It Rains It Pours, and even I'll Whip Your Head Boy are all pretty extensively good 50 Cent songs. I guess there were 2 songs that 50 Cent didn't deliver on. The only other one I didn't like by him off here was We Both Think Alike. But other than that, he basically, I mean, it's basically like an album and a half of, or it's about a little bit over an EP's worth of good 50 Cent and kind of under promoted and kind of underappreciated 50 Cent cuts. So it's definitely like what I would consider the 2006 50 Cent album if you needed more from him after the massacre. And then there's a couple good joints with Lloyd Banks on there. Tony Ayo gives a singular good song as his only appearance, and there's just some other surprise stuff that kind of works. But so I'm going to go ahead and give this album like an 8.25 out of 10. I'm going to give this album an 8.25 out of 10, me liking 12 out of 18 songs. I feel like that's pretty damn good. It's 2/3 of the project, but these are quite quality. And the fact that I like 12 songs, or there were only 6 songs I didn't like out of 18, that's pretty damn good. So I would have to say it's very underpromoted. Talk about some of the weaknesses. I felt like the rest of the G-Unit crew probably could have came through better. To talk about some of the weaknesses of the project, I felt like the rest of the G-Unit crew probably could have came through better. Like, Tony Ayo should have been on there more. Young Buck probably hit the song that he made, probably should have been better. Like, MOP and Mobb Deep probably could have came through better. It just kind of felt like some of this was kind of extraneous. Like, some of the folks that were supposed to be the next to blow didn't really come through as well. And I think that kind of was what helped hurt their buzz to where they didn't drop projects, because there never was, I mean, at least I want to say I don't remember there being an MOP album. Mobb Deep's kind of album underperformed greatly. Olivia never dropped an album, and Tony Ayo never dropped a second album. So it's just kind of, I mean, a lot of that stuff just really got slighted, and I just don't know what happened to the G-Unit empire around this time. Just something really kind of pulled the plug on them, and it resulted in a lot of stuff. This just really feels like a truncated album. I think that that's just kind of the concept about it. It feels like there were a lot of plans for what was going to happen, and I think 50 Cent was very kind of like zealous about getting some of this stuff to come out, but it just really kind of was shorthanded. And I mean, it's not shorthanded in terms of quality, but in terms of the future that wound up happening, it just felt like so much was going to go down, but it didn't. And I look after it like I don't really have too many problems with the 50 Cent songs and the songs he made appearances on for the most part, but some of these, like most of the songs I didn't like were from like weak beats by folks like MOP and like Young Buck and Mobb Deep and stuff like that, and just kind of lousy other beats otherwise. But I think that's just kind of, and even Lloyd Banks dropped kind of a dud. So I just would have to say that's kind of the concept there. But um, it is a quality project, and I do recommend it. It's definitely got some boilers on here, but I think a lot of people, when you listen to this, you're just going to realize, like, what happened? Why did G-Unit drop this good project, and then they just basically imploded, and that type of stuff is just kind of odd. That's the context behind it, is just seeing what happened to 50 Cent in the late 2000s. People just got tired of his brand, and people just kind of got tired of 50 Cent's brand. I mean, he still had massive popularity, but it just felt like, compared to Get Rich and The Massacre and like the first few G-Unit albums up to about Tony Ayo's album, that was kind of the concept. But it's just kind of, I like these albums. I don't really care. I like this album. I like Curtis. I like Before I Self-Destruct. I somewhat like Animal Ambition, and I like the stuff that he was working on post 2006. There was a lot of good stuff in there, but that's kind of the concept about it. So the social score, I'm going to give an 8-2, just because 5 singles that were all great, and some quality 50 Cent songs that kind of were about stepping out, and most of these songs on here have some degree of stepping out. I feel like even for more hole in the wall and pub type cuts, I feel like songs like the Spider Loc song and the Tony Ayo song and stuff like that, and the Lloyd Banks song Get Low, are all pretty quality for just various nights of just having a good time and that sort of stuff. You've got vanilla club cuts, you've got hole in the wall type cuts, you've got pub cuts, you've got strip club cuts, you've got a bunch of things to kind of have like a pretty active nightlife. This is pretty central for like that time period. Definitely has some quality stuff, so I would definitely recommend that. And in terms of the future, like 50 Cent has said that he's possibly thinking about dropping some more music. G-Unit is basically done for, but I still feel like this is enough quality to kind of recommend and stuff, so I would definitely have to say that.